The first snowflake drifted past the 38th floor window of Arcadia Tower without a sound. A single shard of white, delicate and unnoticed by most, melted instantly upon touching the warm glass. From her post behind the sleek reception desk in the building's soaring marble lobby, Claire Jennings tracked its descent, her gaze lifting from the terminal screen for the first time in what felt like hours. A subtle distraction, nothing more, but something about it lingered with her, a signal of change in the air. Moments later, more flakes followed, fluttering in the frigid wind sweeping through the streets of downtown Chicago. Claire tucked a loose strand of honey-brown hair behind her ear, her blue eyes narrowing as she pulled up the local radar. Her heart skipped. The map pulsed with red and violet, a massive front advancing faster than predicted, bearing down over Lake Michigan with predatory speed. Just then, the intercom buzzed sharply. "Ms. Jennings, security here. You've seen the alert?" It was Jared from building security, his voice clipped and tense. "Just now," she answered, watching as snow swirled in violent gusts beyond the glass. The young trees outside bowed in surrender to the wind. "We're initiating early closure. Emergency protocols active. Scanouts mandatory. No exceptions, Claire. You know the drill." "Yes, I understand." At 26, Claire had worked reception at Sterling and Abbott Architects for just under 9 months. Enough time to understand that rules here weren't suggestions. The firm wasn't just about designing skyscrapers, it housed confidential plans, military contracts, and proprietary systems. Control and compliance were gospel. Her screen pinged with an email from the executive operations account. "All staff, due to extreme weather, Arcadia Tower will close at 4:30 p.m. Please secure sensitive materials before departure. Security protocol remains in effect. No unauthorized persons allowed past reception under any circumstance." Standard language, stern and impersonal. Claire forwarded the notice and glanced up. Employees were already funneling out in a quiet rush. Many cast uneasy looks toward the streets outside, where visibility had dropped dramatically in just 30 minutes. "Good luck getting home," called Eric from finance, already zipping his coat. "You too," Claire responded, her professional smile in place. Polished, pleasant, but not too warm. Sterling and Abbott trained their front-of-house staff well. Friendly, but distant. Approachable, but not familiar. By 5 p.m., the 34-story building was nearly deserted. Only security remained, stationed methodically throughout the premises. Claire stayed per protocol until 5:30 to field last-minute communications and ensure the secure doors locked correctly. Outside, the city was a blur of white fury. Claire's phone buzzed. "Casey, transit's down. Uber's 4X surge. You gonna make it home?" Claire bit her lip. She'd intended to take the bus, but clearly that was no longer an option. She had an emergency credit card for situations like this, but the idea of watching the fare meter skyrocket filled her with dread. She barely stayed ahead of rent and student loans as it was. Claire, figuring it out, might be here a while. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She was just about to shut down her terminal when a soft, repetitive thumping drew her attention. At first, she assumed it was the storm rattling the doors. But this sound had rhythm, desperation. She rose, heels clicking quietly on the marble floor, and approached the glass vestibule. A figure materialized out of the storm, barely upright, his hand pressed weakly against the glass door. His coat was coated in ice, hair dusted white, lips tinged blue. He knocked again, faint, uncertain. Claire stopped in her tracks. Security cameras blinked from the corners of the lobby. Her eyes flicked toward them, heart racing. She could practically hear Jared's voice echoing in her head. No exceptions. No entry. The cameras were live. Monitored. Logged. Every move she made would be recorded. Evaluated. Judged. The man staggered, his knees giving way as he collapsed against the door. His face turned toward hers, etched with cold, with something older than fear, resignation. She froze. "You'll lose your job," a voice inside her warned. But another voice, quieter, older, rose to meet it. "He'll lose his life." Before she could change her mind, Claire pressed the emergency override. The door clicked. She rushed forward into the icy wind and gripped the man's arm. "Come in, quickly." He stumbled forward, half falling into the vestibule. His words were slurred. Bus stopped. Tried, walking. "You're freezing," Claire said, already pulling him toward a bench just inside the vestibule, technically not within the secure office space. She returned to the reception desk, knelt to pull the emergency blanket from under the counter, and ran to the break room vending machines. Using her last few dollars in cash, She bought a hot coffee and grabbed a wool scarf from the lost and found. She returned to find him still trembling. "Here," she said, wrapping the blanket around him, placing the cup into his gloved hands. He looked up, dazed. "Why help me?" Claire hesitated. "Because you needed help." She didn't notice the janitor watching from across the lobby, mop still in hand. He was older, gray-haired, dressed in faded maintenance coveralls. Most days, no one noticed him, but his eyes, sharp and unblinking, missed nothing. His name wasn't really Mike, though that's what his name tag said. It was Nathaniel Bennett, founder, CEO, visionary architect. Unbeknownst to the staff, he had returned to his company in disguise, part of a personal evaluation of what Sterling and Abbott had become in his absence. What he saw in that moment shook him more than any quarterly report ever had. Claire didn't know she was being watched, not by anyone who mattered. She acted not out of fear or ambition, but quiet conviction. And that changed everything. Nathaniel remained in the shadows, watching Claire tend to the man without hesitation, without audience, without credit. When 3 employees emerged minutes later, rushing toward the exit, he observed how they reacted. One averted his eyes, another pretended not to see, the third offered a half-hearted glance before hurrying past. They looked through the man like he was a stain on the window, something to avoid. Nathaniel's mind flashed back to another winter. He was 10. His mother had begged a landlord for just a few more days. No exceptions, the man said. A month later, they were sleeping in a car. 1 year after that, his mother had gotten a job from a woman named Jeanette at a diner. No questions asked. Sometimes, Jeanette had told him, people just need someone to open the door. Nathaniel watched Claire now, recognizing that same kindness in her. He didn't intervene. When security alerted HR about the breach the next morning, he didn't respond. When the incident report landed on his desk, suggesting a written warning and probation, he didn't sign it. Not yet. Instead, he waited. 3 days later, Claire was summoned to HR. She walked into the conference room at 10 a.m. sharp, palms sweating but back straight. Melanie from HR sat at the table. So did Jared from security. "Miss Jennings," Melanie began, "you're here to discuss a breach of protocol on the evening of the storm." Claire nodded. "Yes. I let a man into the vestibule. That man was unauthorized. He was hypothermic." Jared frowned. "We have procedures for emergencies. You call 911. You do not unlock secure doors." I called. No one answered. Emergency lines were overwhelmed. "That's not your decision to make." Claire met their eyes. "He would have died. I kept him in the vestibule. I stayed with him. I took full responsibility." Silence. "Any further breach," Melanie said at last, "will result in termination. This incident will be formally documented. 90-day probation." "I understand," Claire said simply. Behind one-way glass, Nathaniel listened. He'd heard enough. That afternoon, Claire received another meeting request, this time from the executive office. She entered the conference room to find Nathaniel Bennett himself waiting. Not in a suit. Not behind a podium. Just him. "Miss Jennings," he said. "Thank you for coming." She was speechless. "I saw what happened that night," he continued. "Because I was there. I was the janitor." Her eyes widened. "I created this company to design spaces where people feel safe. But somewhere along the way, we started building walls instead of doors." He handed her a folder. "This is an offer. A new position. Director of Human-Centered Design. Reporting to me. I want you to help reshape how we think, not just about buildings, but about people." Claire blinked. "Why me?" "Because when no one was watching, you chose kindness." 6 weeks later, Claire stood in a meeting room with the executive team, pitching a proposal for temporary weather shelters that could deploy from the plaza itself, tucked seamlessly into the design. Legal objected. Finance worried. Security hesitated. She had answers for all of them. Partnerships. Budget breakdowns. Safety protocols. And most importantly, stories. Miguel, the man she'd helped, now consulted on the project, offering insight from his own experience. Security officers had undergone new training. HR had revised guidelines. Other firms began to take notice. For months past, the lobby of Arcadia Tower was unrecognizable. Where once there was cold marble and steel, there was now warmth. A community space. A coffee station. Emergency shelters integrated into the architecture. Claire stood by the window, watching a young mother sip cocoa while her daughter colored at a table nearby. Rebecca, the new community liaison, sat beside them, offering support. Jared approached quietly. "She lost housing last week," he said. "Storm's coming again." Claire nodded. "We're ready this time." As Nathaniel Bennett stepped into the lobby, the two exchanged a look. No words, just understanding. This was never just about buildings. It was about people, and it had started with one unlocked door.